Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Pull Up with Limbs and Things. My name is Dr. Chanel James. I'm the owner of Limbs and Things mobile and telehealth physical therapy practice. We serve aging adults in DC, Maryland, and in Virginia, and our goal is to help you move from whatever you can't do to being able to do it. Pull Up with Limbs and Things is to confirm something you know, to challenge something you don't know, and to give you an opportunity to share that information with someone else. So tonight we're talking to Miss Sheila Griffith. She is from the Alzheimer's Association and she is the area senior program manager. And so we know a lot of times as we get older, sometimes we'll say, I just can't remember what day it is. I think that, I should know these things. I shouldn't be forgetting as much as I do. And so we just want to know, is that normal aging or is that Alzheimer's? So we'll talk about it tonight. Tonight we're talking about, is it aging or is it Alzheimer's? So welcome, Miss Griffith. How are you?
Thank you, Dr. James. I'm great. And thank
Good.
you, all of the Limbs and Things audience. This is awesome. Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about what we're going to talk about tonight.
Well, as you said, we are really going to dive into the 10 warning signs. We have a program that really encompasses this, goes in depth to it. But we're going to have less of an in-depth program and more of a conversation. And I think maybe even be able to use a lot of probably real life examples of these 10 warning signs. And just if there's things we should be worried about, this is really what you mentioned in the intro is exactly what we're asked all the time. What should I be worried about in myself or in my loved one? And how do I know? And what do I do if I have any of these 10 warning signs? So we're gonna hear all that tonight. So looking forward to that.
Absolutely. So I work with a lot of patients who have Alzheimer's, but I've also had a personal experience. My mother-in-law had Alzheimer's disease, early onset. And so it is a topic that is close to home. If you have questions or you have comments, please put them in the comment section and we will discuss them. So let's talk about the first warning sign.
Well, it's the biggest one, and it's kind of the really the cornerstone of thinking about the 10 warning signs and thinking about Alzheimer's disease. So the first one is really memory loss that really disrupts our daily life. So things like and so here I go. Here's my normal what is happening to somebody who's not diagnosed, myself maybe or others, and then somebody who might want to seek some help. So when it disrupts, what is this memory loss that disrupts your daily living? So it's really driving, maybe still driving to, I like to use the example of the Costco near me is like a madhouse. And so just getting in a parking spot is difficult. Then going through the whole Costco, getting my whole shopping, and then coming out and trying to remember where did I park? And then, okay, I can find my car, can load all the groceries I bought in there. But then I have to get out of this very big parking lot that's hard to get out of and then get home. So all these steps, and to us maybe who are not experiencing difficulties right now, this doesn't sound like a big problem. But if this is somebody with maybe there's a problem with their memory, this can be very overwhelming. And I think in some ways, it makes your memory work worse. So you might have a problem like it could be dementia, it could be Alzheimer's disease. But when you're kind of adding all these other things in, these other factors, your memory starts to not really work as well. And so you get lost, you're lost in the parking lot, or you can't even get home. I've had so many people use this as an example, like be at a big parking garage somewhere and just trying to remember how to drive, get the car out, and then find their way home. And believe it or not, that's the example of a familiar place. I know my route home from here. I maybe have done it several times, but I can't remember how to go. I don't know how to even get out of this parking garage. And so that's really starting to disrupt your life. You're going to have to call a loved one to come help you. A lot of times you may say, well, just put on your maps or your GPS and you can get out of there easy. Right. I'm not going to remember that. That is the difference. So normal aging, I have just lost my mind right here. I can't remember where my car is, or I can't remember, do I make a left or right out of here to get home? I'm in the city maybe, and I just don't remember where to go. Okay, that's normal. And I do know I have GPS, and I hit it, and I know how to go, and it refreshes my memory. With aging that is disrupting your daily living, you will not remember that you have GPS. You will maybe remember you have a cell phone that you can even call, somebody to come help you, but
Right.
you might not. You might just be wandering around, and that's really getting lost because you can't remember how to get home. And you can be lost on foot, you can be lost in your car, you can be lost on public transportation. So it's not knowing where you're going and then having to get help. Doing that over and over, more than 2 or 3 times, then there's a problem. So that's the memory loss that really disrupts your daily living.
Absolutely. Good one.
I guess, yeah.
I
So
often hear people who are, say, I'm in a parking garage and they're clicking their clicker in their car to find the car. Now, if you can know to do that, is that normal aging or is that a symptom?
that's normal, I think. And I what I do a lot of times, like if you ever go to a really big event, take a
Mhm.
picture of, like,
Right.
I'm on G3, take a
Mhm.
picture of that, and okay, I got to look at my phone. Okay, oh yeah, now do my
Right.
key fob. I can hear it. That's all normal aging. And I should say that the Alzheimer's Association, what we say is that everybody's aging.
Mhm.
And our bodies are getting slower. Maybe we're having difficulty with balance, or difficulty, even moving in some way. And our brains, and that's normal, maybe for a
Right.
lot of people, but our brains, it's the same thing. Our brains are going to get a little slower, where, we used to be like this with names all the time. And now it's like, who was
What's your
that actor
name?
in
Yeah.
that movie? What was the name of the movie we saw,
Yeah.
last Friday? I can't, it'll come to me. And we're going to
Mhm.
talk about that too when things come to you. But that initial, I just can't remember. That's not really a big problem or something to be really concerned about, because depending on what age you are, your brain is slowing down a little bit too. I feel like that. I'm in my late 50s, and I feel like names don't come as quickly as they used to. And
Mhm.
but it's not disrupting my daily life, so it's not that big of an issue. But remembering, like you said, where your car is, hitting the key, knowing you have all those things at your disposal.
Right.
Even I think on my cell phone, it tells me where my car was, where I left it.
Uh-huh.
And so, knowing that I have all that, that helps me. But I'm aging normally. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But the second one is kind of
Mhm.
interesting, and it kind of follows the memory loss that disrupts your daily living. But it's then we start to have problems and challenges with planning and thinking. So, it's things like knowing you see you have no food in the house. So you figure you better go shopping. You you don't make a list, and you just try to get to the grocery store, and maybe you drive, and maybe you remember how to get there, because some of us who are the grocery shoppers in the family, to
Uh-huh.
me it's like autopilot, to get to the grocery store.
Mhm.
But I didn't make a list, and I'm not quite sure what I'm doing here. I see the grocery store, and this has happened to me one time, and I don't know, if anybody else has ever had this happen, but I was grocery shopping years ago, and I noticed an older woman who seemed lost. And I observed her for a little while, and we were in the produce section where I always start out. And
Mhm.
I think she always starts out too. And she looked like she was getting distressed. And I asked her if I could help her. And she said she didn't remember how she got here, or what
Mm.
was going on, what she was supposed to be doing here. So, I helped her call her son, and then, that was that. But that's memory loss that disrupts, your daily life, because you got to call your son, and we got to get out of this jam. But
Mhm.
secondly, you don't even know why you're there. You recognize you had no food, but then there's no list. So, and even if you did say to yourself, or maybe you said to me, Sheila, make a list before you go to the grocery store, I can't really do that. I'm having trouble with that. I'm having trouble saying, what do I need in the refrigerator? Okay, let me write it down and I'll go get it. That
Yeah.
simple process is a planning process that you start to lose.
Absolutely. So, personal experience with the planning part. My mother-in-law had Alzheimer's disease, and she used to put all of her meat after she went to the store in a deep freezer. But when it was time to cook, she could not remember if she had food there and would think that she needed to go get something because she couldn't remember where she had put it when
And
she
she'd
first.
open the fridge, there's nothing in
Then
there.
you,
The
right, but
meat's
if
not
you
there.
open where you normally put it, there's what you need. So,
And
yeah, it's not always like leaving, it's just knowing where you normally do things. That kind of executive functioning thing can
that's
be one
exactly,
that
you
if
just,
it's
you
not
hit
there.
it on the head. It's the executive functioning. First, it's this memory loss it's going to start becoming crippling.
Mhm.
In your daily life, you're going to need a lot of help. Then it's the executive functioning, thinking and planning starts to go away. And
Right.
I can't do that anymore. And then what you brought up is a great example, because the next sign is having trouble with familiar tasks. So that was maybe really familiar with your mother-in-law for her.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden it's a disconnect. It's not right in front of me. I don't see the meat. I'm trying to make this for dinner and it's not here. I got to go back to the store. Wow,
Yeah.
she forgot that whole step. But
Mhm.
those familiar tasks, even things like you might notice, um, even with normal aging, um, I like to bake. And sometimes, if, like I said earlier, I really believe multitasking is a bad idea. It makes your memory not work at the full capacity. Like focus gives
Mhm.
you your full focus. Four things at once gives you, a quarter of the focus, right?
Right, right.
That's what I believe. That I'm not saying the Alzheimer's Association here, but I feel like my memory works better. So when I like to bake, and if I'm
Mhm.
getting all my ingredients together and I'm putting everything in there and I can't remember, did I put the baking powder in? Did I? It's not
Mhm.
out. I don't see it. And it's hard to see because the flour and everything looks the same.
Mhm.
So that's a familiar task, but I don't go without the baking powder. I figure it out maybe, or oh yes, I did. Okay. I'm looking at the recipe. So sometimes people have made this same dish, or, maybe if they're a cook or a baker, their whole lives.
Mhm.
And then you say to me, Sheila, make your banana bread. Okay. How do I start?
Right.
Like this is the thing I made for you your whole life. And I'm not even really sure how to start. That's a sign that, yeah, there might be something wrong. Normal aging, I think did I put in the baking powder or not? Let
Right,
me
right.
try to backtrack a little bit and find out if I did.
And then you figure it out.
You do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully you do. Or you have some bad banana bread that, doesn't rise
Mhm.
or whatever it is. But those familiar tasks, they can be really awful, because you're going to find that, and I don't know if anybody's had this, experience where you're going to be, if you have this diagnosis, or if you've been having some of these signs and you think there might be a problem or a loved one, you're going to start writing sticky notes, make the
Mhm.
banana bread, all these reminders to yourself. And that's going to work for a little while,
Mhm.
hopefully.
Yeah.
But after a while, we're going to learn in the next couple of signs of the 10 signs, it's going to stop working eventually too. So
Right.
we always say, do what you can now. If the sticky notes work now, then use the sticky notes. But, normal aging is, you don't need sticky notes for everything in your life, maybe just a few, you know,
Yeah.
and sometimes, like, if you ever looked at, maybe you didn't use like your DVR or something on your TV, and you're not sure how, or streaming, like, how, okay, which remote do I use to get Netflix, which, that's kind of a
Mhm.
big thing in my house right now. That's normal, and I don't know, what was that show on again, and how do I get to Netflix, and
Mhm.
that's normal. Maybe your teenager showed you a million times, but you're just kind of like not always focused on that. But the familiar task of any kind of thing, like, even that you've done, like even balancing your checkbook, things like that, are going to become much more difficult. And if they were
Absolutely.
routine before, they're not going to
Mhm.
be routine anymore. So, unfortunately. And then the fourth sign, this all kind of unfortunately goes along with each other, and you might, and we always caveat this by saying you might have one or two of these, or all 10. either way, if you do have one or two and it is becoming a problem and you're recognizing it, or you're recognizing it in a loved one, then you should talk to a doctor and try to get help. But one of the other things that we see happens pretty frequently with people with this diagnosis, or who are going to get this diagnosis, is confusion with time and place. So not knowing, so today, this was hard, remembering Saturday at 6 p.m. I'm going to be with LimbsNThings, because it's a Saturday, and that's unusual for me. But we were able to connect, and here we are, so that worked. But it's somebody with this diagnosis, that type of thing might be really difficult over a period of time. A big thing we see is that I'm getting ready. You're coming to pick me up, and you're picking me up, and you see me, and it's a nice day out today, but I'm wearing 3 layers of clothes and I have my winter coat on. Wow, it's a little cool. It's nice out. You don't need all that. And so it's this confusion that, no, I think it's cold out there. And it could be that normal aging. I didn't realize I was inside all day. And so yeah, I'm overdressed. Okay, but the time and place, it starts to really affect you. With place, it's often saying, how did I get here? I don't even remember how I got here. And that's, like the Costco example, or any kind of, I think, stressful situation. It doesn't help your memory. Stress kind of makes your memory worse. And so if you're in a chaotic situation, often people with this diagnosis will not remember even how they got there. So that's a big confusing issue for people.
Absolutely. So my personal example of that one, my mother-in-law went to church every Sunday, and she started not remembering which day of the week it was. And so she would drive to church and it not be Sunday and wonder why she couldn't get in. Or at the time when her disease had progressed, the church van would come and pick her up, but she didn't remember it was Sunday. And so she wouldn't be ready when they came and picked her up.
Those are great examples. That would be a warning sign for sure. And being late or forgetting it was Sunday one time. But always knowing that you can go to the calendar, you can call a loved one, you can look on your computer, or your cell phone and see. We always say, is it May already? Oh yeah, it is. It's May 6th. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But that's a great example of, that's her familiar task, a familiar place. And then all of a sudden it starts to break down because she doesn't know the time, or really the day of the week. And that's very common also. Oh boy. Well, another thing that happens with people with Alzheimer's disease is that they start to have trouble with spatial relationships and visual relationships. And we were talking about this briefly earlier, that someone who their eyes, they wear eyeglasses or they wear contacts, or their vision is fine. It's been checked. It's fine, but they're still not seeing what we see. So they might not see that there's a drop off, ahead of them. They might not see there's a step. They might not, really be safe to walk around on their own. A lot of times, even though your vision is okay, how it's translated to your brain is kind of it's not translated the right way. And so we don't know what's really happening.
Absolutely. So, that's my thing, right?
Yep.
So I see a lot of patients who have Alzheimer's disease. And so we talk about different things, even in people who do not have it. And I'll put something on the floor and I'll ask them, okay, are you seeing that? What color do you think it is? And just watching them step over it. The color may be off. The color could be accurate. However, when they step over it, their depth perception is off. And so they have a tendency to either misstep, overjudge, underjudge, and then have a reason for falling. And so a lot of times when people who have Alzheimer's do come to physical therapy, it's usually because they've had a fall.
And are they worried about their balance, I would think. And,
And then we have to look at a couple of different things too. Is it really your judgment? Is it what you're seeing? Is it a balance issue? Is it more cognitive and we should work on like timing of before you step over
Mhm.
it? So it's a couple of different factors that play a
Wow, that's interesting. And I guess obviously contrast and color, has a lot to do with it. My background is nursing homes and assisted living before coming
Okay.
to the Alzheimer's Association. But, just in having people with Alzheimer's disease, helping them be able to be independent eating,
Mhm.
looking down, and if they don't have a contrasting plate that has, a lighter background, maybe darker food on a darker tablecloth or
Mhm.
whatever, that helps them see, okay, there's all different, things happening here. It's not just one big dark area, that they
Right. And it's
don't
not
even
that they
see the
can't
food.
feed themselves. They just probably
They
can't
don't see the
see it.
food.
Right. Mhm.
And so what's normal aging, with this talking about this like depth perception and spatial relationships? Well, it's that our eyes, things happen to our eyes as we age, like cataracts is a big
Mhm.
example where that is going to skew your vision and it's your vision is a problem. Well, you can go and get the cataracts fixed. Luckily, that's something that, can not does not lead to Alzheimer's disease, but then actually can help the person be able to function better and to see those obstacles or to just be better equipped to be
Mhm.
able to move and to participate in limbs and things and be able to be successful. We
Uh-huh.
talked earlier, balance is everything for anyone. Balance is
Absolutely.
everything for all of us, whether we have this diagnosis or not. So losing that balance because we can't tell the depth perception anymore and we can't judge it is really it's critical to be able to hold on to that. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I'm glad you're doing what you're doing and recognizing it is
Yeah.
it's so great that that's a question you ask or that's something that you're really looking at with each person that you work with because
Mhm.
you have to ask the questions to figure it out.
You
It's you
do.
don't know what they're seeing.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. Well, the next one is I sort of alluded to this earlier is we start to have trouble with speaking and word finding. And now people always when I do this in front of an in-person audience,
Mhm.
everybody kind of goes, well, I have that problem. I can't think of the word,
Right.
and sometimes it gets really bad. I can't think of
Mhm.
the word I'm trying to think of. Well, we're talking about a little bit more than that. That's normal aging. Like I said before, maybe names don't come as quickly to me as
Mhm.
I used to, be so good at that. But maybe even just in conversation, maybe I can't think of the word balance. I wanted to say that to you, but I couldn't think, what was that word? What's that again when you don't fall over? Oh, balance. Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
That's normal aging. We all go through that as we age. Our brain, as I said, gets a little, slower, that as we get older. But this problem that we should be worried about is really like what I was talking about earlier, where my memory and as I'm having trouble with it, I can't do familiar tasks as well anymore. So you want to help me, so you do my sticky notes for me, and you say, socks in this drawer. So you want me to be independent, you want me to get dressed, and you want me to be ready for the day. So you can write down where everything is and even paste it onto the drawer or in the closet, whatever it is. And this is going to work really well for me, maybe for, I hope, a long time. Maybe not a long time, but eventually it's not going to work. I'm going to have a disconnect between reading the words. I'm looking for socks. There is a label, socks, doesn't register.
Mhm.
And sometimes it happens reading the word, and that maybe is my problem. Somebody else's might be actually the speech. Maybe they are thinking and they're really getting it, but they're not able to express it. So it kind of can go either way, but it's more than just a little word finding now and then. It's a real like I don't know how to read anymore, or I
Right.
don't know how to follow those directions because of that. So
Right. So I find a lot of times we have to give people who have this disease a little more time to think. A lot of times we want a fast answer. We tend to ignore it and think they're just not going to respond, but probably they're thinking about it and trying to find the right word to respond to us.
and
And so
that
I just find like waiting. then you get an answer and you're like, oh, I didn't know you thought that. So yeah.
We have a great program, and it's called Effective Communication Strategies with Alzheimer's disease. And you are like talking about one of the major points there is leaving enough time and really talking to me maybe in the early stages to, we see this happening. You've seen it happening with me where I'm not coming up with the word, or I'm not coming up with the answer that you've asked a question. I'm not coming up with it, but you can see I'm working on it.
Yeah.
So you can give me more time. That's great. Or we might have the type of relationship where you can fill in the blank for me. I know you like red, so why don't you put on the red blouse today instead, and we'll save the blue blouse for tomorrow, because, for whatever reason, whatever. But you could maybe kind of fill in my blank for me, but it's only if I want, that that's okay for me. Actually, you can even ask me if we talk a lot, if we're together a lot, maybe if this is a spouse that you're caring for, you now, like right now, I finish a lot of my husband's sentences anyway, and it's okay. So maybe if later on we were having trouble, I would be feeling comfortable doing that, but the best thing to do is leave the time. But if you think that it's making me, maybe upset or anxious, even with the time, you can also fill in the blanks for me if that works for us. So you've got a great point there. Really. Thank you. And isn't this so awful, to lose our ability to communicate effectively? That's exactly what it is. And it's so debilitating. And, just not finding the right word that's normal. This goes much further. And our next sign, we're sort of leading up to, a lot of our examples are going to lead up to some of these last few signs. So one of the things that's lost with Alzheimer's disease and a lot of dementia also is the ability to retrace your steps. So I'm looking for my cane, or I'm looking for my car keys. And sometimes I'll say that to, if I'm doing a program, to the audience, like, right now, do you know where your keys are, your car keys? Maybe you drove here. So they might be in your pocket. They might be in your purse. Are you sure? And so you're going to check, you're retracing your steps, and you're going to be pretty sure where your keys are. With somebody with Alzheimer's disease or dementia, they're not going to be able to retrace in their mind, where was my keys? When did I last see them for sure? Did I have them in my hand? Maybe they're still in the car. And if I can't find them, I know to go look all these places where I was before I got here. And of course, look in the car. Somebody with Alzheimer's disease or dementia, that's lost. And it doesn't work. And it's a great saving, process for us to find, anything that we're missing. But with Alzheimer's disease, that piece goes, and then all of a sudden we're missing everything, and it can be really debilitating.
In a really good, practical way, especially when I'm seeing people in their homes or their home environment, as I ask them, especially if I'm seeing you after a meal. So what did you have for breakfast? Do you remember what you had for lunch? Did you recall what we did last time I saw you? Some of those things are a little bit further in their memory. However, the more immediate things, they struggle with if they're having that type of diagnosis.
Yeah, it's what happens is when we first talked about memory that's affecting our daily life, and it's really short-term memory.
Absolutely.
And short-term memory is anything that we just newly learned. Not the stuff we learned, 30 years ago, in school or wherever else. We might still remember how to speak another language, or, remember things we learned there, or where we lived, where we grew up, where, if we're not there now, if we're someplace different. But it's that newly learned information that is lost in short-term memory loss. And it's really the hallmark, that we're talking about. So if you can't, but normal aging with this example is I kind of remember what I had for breakfast.
Right.
And if we really stop, I'll tell you, but And last night, and sometimes last weekend, what did we do last weekend? Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was raining. It was raining and cold, and now it's nice. Finally, it feels like spring. Oh yeah, okay, got it. And that's how it goes, unfortunately. And it's a short-term memory loss problem versus it's not a long-term memory problem. Eventually, it'll become a long-term memory problem, but it's really short-term memory loss that makes all these things happen. And like you said, just if I saw you last week, what did we do? But do people remember once you start going over it again?
They do. Some do, and some don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes that's a blessing, maybe if you didn't want to exercise or you didn't want to get moving and, maybe this time feels like the first time and you're just willing to give it a shot. But, well, another warning sign for Alzheimer's disease and dementia, and this is really, it's a good one for us all to remember. It's decreased judgment in, what's happening in our daily lives. And so we all know a lot of seniors are targets for scams all the time. And, it could be, the one where you're getting a phone call, you answer, and you're giving away personal information, maybe bank account information. You think it's your bank. They're pretending to be your bank. Or there's a horrible one where they're calling to say your grandchild's in jail. And can you give us, $10,000 to get your grandchild out of jail? And you think, oh my gosh, yes. Okay. Here's my credit card number. And so these types of things are real scams. Sometimes they happen to the best of us that are not having a problem with memory or, maybe any kind of diagnosis like this. But with Alzheimer's disease, we're certainly going to fall for these types of scams. Our judgment really decreases. I don't know that there's a lot of people out there that are doing things like this. I don't know that anymore. I might just be following commands, in a way. Oh, you need my bank, you need my banking information, you need my birth date, you need my social security. Oh my gosh, okay, here it is. And so it's a horrible thing, but it really, when we talk to caregivers and family members, we say that's one of the first things you should really think about. Your loved one could have any of these signs, but their judgment is going to become decreased, maybe quickly. Maybe it already has. Maybe they forgot to pay the rent last week. Maybe they forgot to, pay the water bill. Sometimes this is how you find out, is because all of a sudden the electric shut off. Well, why is the electric shut off at home, Mom? Oh my gosh, you didn't pay the bill. Yes, I did. No, you didn't. And, blah, blah, blah. And so, but that decreased judgment, and it goes for not only people scamming us and maybe taking advantage of us. So really try to, as an adult child or a loved one, with caring for somebody with this diagnosis, try to get early on control of their finances, trying to, take steps. And we have a program about that. If you go to our website, giving a lot of tips and advice on how to help somebody with their finances and do some financial planning. And that might be getting you on my bank account with me. So then you can see if I'm missing, paying the electric. Maybe you could just pay my electric for me, but maybe I don't want you to. Maybe I still want to keep paying it, but now you can see it and you could be my backup. Or you could remind me. You could say, put the sticky note up, pay the electric bill. And that might work for a while. And then, but it's not going to cure it, but you do need to take other steps with it. And it could be decreased judgment for everything, like just, I'm not living in a very safe manner. I don't realize that I'm hoarding, and there's no space in my house anymore. And, that is such a danger, tripping over something or a tripping hazard that I'm not aware of anymore. And I'm really putting myself at risk. And I have no idea.
One that I see a lot is a lot of seniors do not want to give up driving. However, their reaction time is decreased and their safety in being able to park, being able to just drive down the street and stay in their own lane. or just remembering, their directions to go here or to go there and return back home. And a lot of times there are caregivers that are trying to decide or ask me, do you think my mom can still drive? Do we think that she's safe to do so? And then I just had a personal example where my mother-in-law, she would constantly get in accidents, and she would always say it was the other person's fault. And then my husband actually went to the scene one time and saw that it was clearly her fault. But
Oh,
this was like, it almost was weekly. And so then it would just became clear that, this is probably something you shouldn't do anymore.
exactly. And I always say to like adult children specifically, if you're having that question, should mom still be driving? Take a ride with her. Take a ride with her, see, what you think, try to be non-judgmental, depending on what your relationship's like and whatever. Just try to, don't say I'm testing you, mom, but just try to, oh, you drive, mom. And then you can get a little sense of how it's going. But you've hit the nail on the head. And if somebody who we suspect is having a problem is having either multiple car accidents, for sure, that is a big sign that something's wrong. But also, I always say to adult children also, take a look at your mom's car, your dad's car. There are a lot of dents everywhere, and they're all somebody else's fault because they don't remember doing it. They're having a memory issue. This is all kind of part of it. So you can't hold me responsible sometimes because I literally don't remember having that fender bender or having, that squeezing into that space at the shopping center and then realizing, oh, my judgment was really bad. My spatial relationship vision is definitely off. And, my car shows it. So, and I'll add something to that too. Like when we do have somebody who's still driving that we're thinking maybe they shouldn't be driving anymore. We have a program actually that talks about how to talk to a loved one about stopping driving. And we really encourage you. It's hard. None of us want our cars taken away from us. It is now in this day and age, unless you're really good with public transportation and that's your go-to, it is hard to get somebody to stop driving. So don't think you're going to be successful right off the bat. You probably won't.
Absolutely.
Be. You're going to need some education and some help and some support.
And let's talk about one of the ways you can get some of the support with your association.
Thank you. Well, you can see, right? I think you can see. I hope you can see because I can see this. Our website, www.alz.org, is a great resource. As I said, there's a way to just look in there under Alzheimer's and dementia and maybe put driving in the search tool, and you'll come up with a whole bunch of advice, tips, as I said, and you can even watch a program about somebody like me, and it's a taped program maybe, or we do have live programs like this, where I'm talking about how to get a loved one to stop driving. And that it is not one conversation. It is not, it's like what you were saying with your son, it built up. Okay, now I'm going to the scene and seeing for myself, and okay, I'm getting it now. So those are definitely ways. That's a resource for everybody here. Also, our helpline, as you can see, is 800-272-3900. Our helpline is actually staffed by social workers. So these are people, it's not just an operator, in another country. This is a licensed social worker that we hire to answer the helpline. And they're answering really complex questions. It's could be complex. It could be simple that, oh, you know what? I went and I saw, this program on the 10 warning signs, and I can't remember what they are. Can you, tell me what they are? Maybe that's a simple question, but a really complex question might be at 2 a.m. And it's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week helpline, I should say. So maybe at 2 a.m, a caregiver might call and say, I'm sort of at my wit's end here. My loved one slept all day and is still up, won't go to bed, and I got to get up for work. What can I do? And, there are things you might be able to do right then. but there is going to be a lot of talk and a discussion, that we can have with you about what you should do over the next few days to try to get your mom or your loved one to swap those days to nights and go back to the right way. Now, it happens so much, and it doesn't, all the things we talk about, and you know this already, Dr. James, that even though you solved my crisis today, it could still happen again tomorrow.
Exactly.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So, but that's good. I didn't know the helpline was staffed by social workers. That's great news.
And they'll say sometimes you'll really want to you have a question that you really want to talk to somebody in our area, like in Washington, D.C. or in Maryland or Northern Virginia. And they'll say, you know what, I can send that information to you. If you give them an email address, they'll send it. But if you really want to talk to somebody, they actually then will connect you to me or one of my colleagues here in the National Capital Area chapter. So we're responsible for parts of Maryland, like Montgomery County, Prince George's County, and Southern Maryland, all of Washington, D.C., and then parts of Northern Virginia. So we're sort of right here, all around D.C. And then you might just need to talk to me because you're really interested in learning more about respite care, and you live, depending on what your zip code is, where you might live in DC, or you might live in Montgomery County, or might live in Alexandria, then we can talk about the different resources that might be different in DC as opposed to whatever county it might be. So sometimes it helps to just talk to the local person and just get more advice or more ideas on what to do. So
Absolutely.
we're here as your
there
resource.
Was a gym.
Yeah. And I think, having a collaborator and a partner like LimbsNThings, like this, like what we're doing tonight, really, I think goes a long way, because this is exactly what we're saying, exactly what you're saying. It sounds like to everybody you work with, which is try to keep moving, try to hold on to what you have, try to build muscles, try to better your balance. And if, somebody is not sure how to get in touch with you, but knows how to get in touch with me, well, we can connect you. And so we call that resources too. Like if you're looking for a really good physical therapist program and a really, nice person who, you really can relate to, I can never say to you, oh, you've got to go to Dr. James. That's it. Don't go anywhere else. Just Dr.
No.
I'll give you a list.
Yeah.
But I'll say, you know what? I know Dr. James, and I know this is what she talks about. So you might want to try her first, and then we'll see what they do, But it's about being each other's resource too, for sure.
Absolutely. And I think it's important that people know that even though we're talking about moving, there are so many ways that when you move, your brain operates in different ways, and it helps you to do the task that's difficult for you to do right now. So it's not just the physical motion of just your arms and legs, but it's what's going on up here in your brain that is so helpful to you as you are going through this disease, and being able to move as much as possible just helps you overall.
It absolutely does. Thank you for saying that. We believe the same thing. And I think, for us, it's all about blood flow too. Yeah. And, you have to keep your body moving to keep your blood moving, and to make sure enough oxygen's going up to that brain, and that's really the key for healthy brains, is to really make sure everything's functioning. And even if you can't stand up, even if, you're in a chair or in a bed, or, you can still, I know, there's still things we can do to get blood flow and hopefully get movement. And it's so key. It's so basic, but key, but it's some people miss it and really don't realize that might be something that they really need to do more of to really improve their brain functioning. So it's really important.
I know you've got a few more. We got a comment.
I think.
Question. Do you participate in the Alzheimer's walk every year?
Yes, we actually are required to, believe it or not, or you should believe it. I don't know why you wouldn't, but we, our National Capital Area chapter does 7 walks in our area a year. So the big one is the one in DC. It's always downtown by the Smithsonian, and we're always there, in October. But we do many local ones too throughout Northern Virginia and Maryland, and we have to pick 4 of them. So I don't have to go to all 7, but I do
Okay.
have to pick 4 of them. And they're really our lifeblood. They're the best way that if you, want to get involved, maybe you've known somebody with this disease or you want to give back in a way, the best way to do it and really helps you get moving too is
Yeah.
participate in a walk.
Mm-hmm.
And, because we're always, what we're trying to do is fundraise to give that money to research. We talked earlier, just if we can't find a cure, which is what our number one goal is to find the cure, but to find some better drugs that can really help either push this disease off later in life, much
Right.
later, like with early onset with your mother-in-law. That is the just saddest part of this disease, that it hits people earlier than 65. It's
Yeah.
a smaller number of people, but it's like 300,000 in the US have younger onset versus over 65. What is the kind of usual type of Alzheimer's disease is later after 65. And that's, over 5 million people have it later after 65. So
Yeah.
it's so, yeah, but our walks are our lifeblood and a great way to really reach out to communities. And we're all about not only raising money, but also raising awareness. And that's a great way to do it, is having people get together someplace in our area and really come together about the disease. So,
How can you find information about the walks in your area? Is it at alts.org?
yep. If you
Okay.
just go to alz.org, and if you remember this, if you go after the org /NCA, when that means National Capital Area. But
Okay.
even if you just go to alz.org, it's going to ask, do you want your local chapter?
Okay.
And you'll go ahead and put your zip code in, and it'll come up if you're in this area in DC or Northern Virginia or Lower Maryland. Then you'll be able to be directed to our website, and it's just the National Capital Area website. So we have a sister chapter in Maryland that is like Baltimore and all the counties that are not Montgomery County and Prince George's County. So we have the 2 biggest counties, and then they have the rest up to Baltimore and Western Maryland.
Okay.
And then Virginia has like 2 other chapters. So
Mhm.
Virginia is huge. It's a big state, and there's actually 3 chapters there. And we cover just the northern Virginia part. So,
Okay.
but we'd love to have anybody. Please go to our website and sign up. Even if you can't walk, if it turns out you can't walk, at least you went ahead and you've raised money. But we hope that you can pick a walk that you can go to. They all start for us. All of our walks, our walk season, as we call it, is in the fall. So it's going to
Right.
start in September and end in November, and it's a whole bunch of 7 weekends during that, or 7 weekend days. So it's not the whole weekend; it's just one day, the Saturday usually. But
Mm-hmm.
they're great. I hope people.
They are. That was a good memory for us doing that.
Oh, great. Good. I'm glad you were able to do that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I think we have 2 more signs, and they kind of go hand in hand, and maybe some people have seen this happen. So when I am experiencing some of these other signs where my memory's not so good, I'm having trouble word finding, I'm not really even sure that it's Tuesday. You told me we're going to have lunch on Tuesday, and I can't remember that, how or when or what. And so after a while, I'm going to say, Dr. James, I'm not going to come to lunch anymore. I start to withdraw. You want me to come, but I can't, I don't want to tell you the reasons, or I don't even know if I can tell you the reasons. I can't remember anymore. It's too much of a hassle. I don't have enough, like I can't get ready in time, that kind of thing. It's too much of a stress. Maybe you can reach out to me and say, well, maybe I can remind you. Maybe I can call you in the morning on Tuesdays at like 9 and say, hey, you have 3 hours, I'll come pick you up even. You don't even have to meet me. I can come pick you up. So those types of things can help me. But mostly I'm going to start withdrawing from like social activities. If I'm still working, I'm definitely going to be having a hard time working, and I'm going to start withdrawing from working. And when you have this early onset Alzheimer's, a lot of people are still working. They're younger than 65.
Right.
They have not retired. It is awful. It's so hard to be suffering any of these signs and try to work.
Right.
Yeah, it's really debilitating. And then the last sign kind of, we segue right into that, where I've heard a lot of people have said to me, a lot of caregivers and others that I've talked to, that their loved one who gets maybe this diagnosis, Alzheimer's disease or another dementia, almost seems like they have a personality change or a mood change. Maybe I was always like very, to the point, and you knew if you were around me, you had to be early or you were late, and the whole 9 yards. And all of a sudden, I'm like, I could care less what time it was, and I'm always late, and I maybe don't even show up anymore. That's a big sign for me. That is a personality change. Another one is using cuss words when I never used to cuss before, and now I cuss like a sailor. What happened? What's going on? Yeah. And people say it's like a personality change, and it really, it happens for a variety of reasons. And really, if you think about all those 10 signs, if you're experiencing a few of them, you start to you realize it's happening. I know I'm not remembering. I feel it. I'm me. I feel, wow, I can't think of these words. All of a sudden, I can't read the words that you left me anymore, my sticky notes. I know this is happening. It may not always be in my mind, 100%. And I might not tie it all together to say, hey, I have a problem. But you become fearful. This is a bad thing. Something's wrong with me. I'm afraid to know what it is. Right. And so that's why you keep pushing me to come on Tuesday, and I get angry. Dr. James, stop asking me to come to lunch. What? Yeah. What happened?
Yeah. I'm afraid. That personality thing is big. I think that's kind of one of the easier ones to tell right away, especially if you've known a person over time. Just seeing the flip from either being completely mean to being completely nice, or the person who's become more aggressive and they're combative at you when you're just trying to assist them. It's been the gamut for me. So it's really interesting.
That it's so you might tell a family member, wow, this was really difficult. Sheila would not cooperate at all. And then after a while, she started, really berating me, and, it got really bad, and we decided to end, and then maybe the adult child's like, what? Sheila would never do that. My mother would never do that. Yeah, no, she would. Yeah. And it's maybe that it hadn't happened yet to the adult child.
Right.
We hope that, loved ones would be seeing this. And that's another big sign to think about and remember. I don't know if you saw this in your mother-in-law, but I am not going to recognize it as well in myself as you recognize it as my close friend or my, neighbor or my sister or something. You're going to see it in me, and I'm going to be denying it in myself. And then you're going to let it go. Maybe it's okay. No, that's 3 times I've had to go, and so then you're going to try to talk to me, and I'm still going to be in denial.
What I've also found is sometimes people can be too close where you can't see. And you just go, this is just normal. They're getting older. I expect them not to be able to do certain things. And then you get the person that's me that says, oh, something's awry here.
Yeah, she should be able to do this. And, what do you think? The pandemic really changed us. It really, the isolation, we found at the Alzheimer's Association that the pandemic, we still were trying to do as much outreach as possible, but people were so isolated. And if they didn't have, the technology to get online, they were even more isolated. And so we found that the incidences of diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease or some other type of dementia went way up as a result of that pandemic. So really, it was a hard time for everybody. And if you're living one-to-one like that, I might be driving you crazy, or you might be in denial with me. Yeah. And then we go to you and you say, hello,
Right.
We could do better, and hopefully people say, yes, I want to do better. I want to get better, and try to see what's happening and see why it's happening.
Yeah. So we got a couple of comments. Miss Doria says, sorry I was late, but glad I got the tail end of this conversation. I live with an aging parent. I'm getting up there myself and used to run a senior care agency. So this topic is near and dear to me. Her follow-up question says, I have seen a delay in progression in memory loss in someone who improved their microcirculation.
Well, that we want to know about that. That's a great case of proving the case of, circulation, getting moving. We have a whole program where we talk about brain health. And it's healthy living for your brain and body. And really the key to that program is getting moving, as we said, but whatever is good for your heart is good for your brain. So moving, eating right, trying to really stimulate your brain by doing cognitive activities and little brain teasers is a really great idea. It really stimulates and tries to make you work your brain.
Absolutely.
And then the social is the other aspect. We say to people, don't forget about the social. But that physical activity is the number one thing to really help you in general in your health completely.
Absolutely. Do you think we'll have a cure soon?
Oh, that's what we hope. And we talked about that a little bit earlier offline that, we hope at the Alzheimer's Association, a lot of the drugs we have now, we've had for years. We've had since like probably the 80s. And those drugs only work for the symptoms of Alzheimer's, like so the problems with thinking and memory, the executive functioning. I could take these drugs in the early stages. I've just seen a problem. My doctor says I'm in the early stage of something. Maybe try one of these drugs that they've had on the market, and it could help me for a period of time, help my, make me feel like I'm clearer in my thinking and I'm not getting lost as often. And I don't have word finding issues as much as I did. But the drugs that have been on the market do not slow the progression, or they're no cure. They're just helping for a point in time.
Yeah.
Recently, though, in the last 2 years, you maybe have heard about the FDA approving new IV drugs, intravenous drugs, not just the old ones were pills that we could take every day. And this is an IV therapy. And it's really in the last, I'd say 2 years, we've come into this new era of treatment where it was before only these pills that helped with thinking and maybe helped. It didn't always work for everybody either. And it only worked in the early stages, to now having these new IV drugs come on market. And there's 2 or 3 now that they say are promising. They actually change the biology of the Alzheimer's disease instead of just helping with a symptom, and so helping with the symptom is like taking Tylenol when you have a headache. And it doesn't stop the headaches forever, but it does helps it that one time. And so these IV therapies are changing the biology, which is really that, the plaques and tangles that we've heard about in the brain. And that's the real hope cure, coming soon, we hope, is something that changes the biology. Even if it doesn't cure it 100%, if it can slow the progression so that we have more days together with me and, my short-term memory lasts me longer. It might have only been going to last me maybe 2 years now, but maybe it lasts me 20 years and just pushes the disease and a lot of these symptoms off later, would be a real gift. So we are hoping for better drugs. And of course, we definitely hope for a cure. And my dream is to be working for the Alzheimer's Association and come back and say to everybody at LimbsNThings, yes, we have the cure. And let me tell you all.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that's my dream. So thanks for asking, though.
So this one says, I wonder if Beamer treatment can help with Alzheimer's. Are you familiar with Beamer treatment?
I'm not. No. What is that?
Okay. So it is doing exactly what you mentioned before, increasing the circulation in your body. So opening up the blood vessels and letting blood flow through all of your body if you use it for your total body. The whole goal is to increase your blood flow. And doing so improves your muscle health. It can improve your immune system. There's so many different ways that it does improve your function. But if you don't know what it is, then you might not be able to answer that.
Yeah, I always learn. Somebody usually stumps me, and so I learn something, and that's a really good one to know about because this is so important. We have a whole program where we talk about getting moving and how to have a healthier lifestyle. So that's if I can if I can get involved with Limbs and Things and talking about, getting better circulation in some way, it's just so important.
Sure. So this lady right here, Miss Doria, and I, we can share information with you about that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So thank you so much for sharing about the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's and helping us know what's normal and what's not. Is there a final thought you want to share?
Just that we at the Alzheimer's Association, I thank you for having us here today and helping with this outreach and just making people aware of this disease and getting diagnosed and getting help if they do have a problem. So we're here.
Oh, yeah, we didn't talk about that. Where should you go if you find out that you have one of these signs?
Go to your doctor. Your general practitioner is the best person to start with. If that person won't listen, or you say, I think I'm having trouble with my memory, I think I have a couple of these warning signs, and they don't want to hear what it is, because there's some doctors that don't. It's not maybe their primary focus. Their focus is really your blood pressure or your other underlying issues. Then try to get a referral, try to see a neurologist. That's the person who can really test you. You can be tested just with memory testing. It's just actual verbally, talking and them asking you questions, and then how your memory works with these memory tests. They can see if there's a problem or not. Now, you also can get MRIs and PET scans and a lot of different things that will show that there's some brain issues or brain changes. But the first step is seeing a doctor, for sure.
Absolutely. So there's also, in physical therapy, we do a couple of tests to do this, to know who we're dealing with. So the mini mental exam, that one would be a good one to see. If you're just, of course, we don't ever want to feel like we're testing someone, but if you just ask a couple of those questions here and there, you may be able to get a little more detail and telltale signs of if you need to seek further assistance for that person.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining. And I want to say one more thing. There are a lot of people who have Alzheimer's and they have other issues. And we as physical therapists can refer them to another discipline. So if your loved one or someone you know has Alzheimer's and they're also having difficulty swallowing, or they're holding food in their mouth, a key factor in that could just be that they need to see a speech therapist. A speech therapist can assess if it's a swallowing issue, if it's a chewing issue, it's the texture, as to the difficulty that they may be experiencing. So if that is something that's occurring and you're seeing it, a good referral would be to a speech therapist.
That sounds awesome. You're absolutely right. And just making sure somebody has the proper glasses, the proper eyewear if they need it, a hearing aid.
Yeah.
You're telling me all these things and I can't hear you.
Right.
And it looks like I have dementia, or I'm having trouble with, with everything. Oh, I just can't hear.
Right.
And so you're right. And chewing and swallowing, that's a big issue and definitely something you want to address.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again so much. If you want to get in contact with Ms. Griffith, or you want any of the resources that she talked about, the information is right there at the end of the screen, www.alz.org, or you can reach the helpline that has a social worker standing by, and the number
answer your questions.
Right, 24 hours, right?
Yep. Okay. Actually, that's the best way to reach us, and you'll be connected with a local person if you need it.
Awesome. And that number is 800-272-3900. And of course, if you ever need physical therapy, you can contact us at LimbsNThings at LimbsNThings.com, or you can give us a call at 202-643-2636. As always, thanks so much for watching Pull Up with Limbs and Things, Ms. Griffith. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank
Everyone
you.
have a good evening.
My pleasure. Thank you.
No
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.